got the strangest feeling. I've got the weirdest feeling. I found my stomach.
The release of Hymn's first official album was entitled Greatest Love Songs Volume 666, which was produced by Hilly Hilsemar. The album is a beautiful romantic mix of ideas about life, love and death. Wicked Game was again featured on the album and proved to be a big hit.
When that first came out in Finland, it was quite a big hit here.
And it made to Finnish album chart, but it didn't go to top 10. It was 11 on the chart. And I think that pretty much tells the story that in Finland at that time, that type of music, of course there was fans and people who were interested in that kind of music, but it wasn't really that popular.
I've got this drowning feeling. Forgotten.
It was a kind of a contemporary gothic rock kind of vibe. A lot of the music that was coming out at that time on the goth scene was it was quite bleepy. There was a bit of an explosion of electro that was happening. A lot of it come over from Europe with bands like Frontline Assembly and Front 242. And what Hymn were doing was different. It was a sort of a return to the kind of classic rock of the goth scene, with bands like Sisters in Mercy, Fields and Nephilim, those kind of bands that were very big in the 80s.
I think it developed throughout the time when there were more and more playing live, you know, and when people saw more and more of Ville, actually, because he's quite a big presence on the stage when he acts. And that makes a lot also to the success.
But it was a sort of a modernised sound. It had a sort of a pinch of glam rock in it as well, and that's something that's always appealed to me. I've always been interested in the glam rock side of things and goth. So here was a band that kind of merged the two sounds together, and I thought, wow, I've got to find out more.
Hymn's charismatic and charming sixth member, manager Seppo Vesterinen, is a walking, talking music library. Seppo came across the band in a Helsinki club and liked what he saw.
Seppo became the manager. Actually, that was quite funny. It was like almost the same time I got there. He was like shortly after me. Then all of a sudden, hey, Seppo. And I was like, Seppo who? And like, then I was told like, hey, he's an old legend from Finland, you know. He used to manage Hanoi Rocks. And then he didn't do any band managing for years and years, and now he's back from the grave, you know. And I was like, whoa, all right. But Seppo is such a fucking cool guy, and he has such a huge knowledge about music business, not only in Europe, also in the States. You know, he knows everything and everybody. You can't fool him. And he is, I think, the backbone of the band.
Hymn proved that rock was back. The Finnish music scene was about to be revitalised.
During the time when Hymn made their debut album, 1997, I think the music scene in Finland wasn't really that rock or heavy metal type of thing.
It starts with a spark.
In Finland, we always have had this big heavy metal rock scene, and we have great heavy metal bands. We had them in 1990s, but for some reason during that time, 1995, 1996, 1997, in the late 90s, radio here in Finland was playing lots of pop music, dance music, electronic music.
Finland's got a very strong music scene, but I think it's also quite a dark music scene. I mean, you wouldn't... There's an element of darkness about here. There's an element of darkness about bands like Nightwish. If you listen to a lot of Finnish music, there is... It's almost like, because they don't have a lot of light in the summer or something, it does something to their music.
Yeah, yeah.
look at the album charts from the late 90s, you can see that there's like Spice Girls and Aqua and like that kind of bands. Well, can you call them bands? I think you can. Girl groups or something like that. And when he made their debut album, heavy metal music or goth music or that kind of love metal stuff wasn't really that big. And for example, when you look at the album charts, most of the bands in Finland that were successful during that time, they were singing in Finnish, but not in English. And when he made the debut album, it somehow started this chain reaction where heavy metal music and maybe goth music or stuff like that started to become more popular, and him had really a great part in that.
They were kind of the spearhead of. We had some pioneers back in the 70s already, back in the 80s with Hannah Rocks and bands like that, but him was the first band that made a serious impact.
And they also helped other bands that had been around to get more and more audience in Finland, like the 69 Eyes, a band that is really popular now, and those guys have been around since the early 1990s, but for some reason they made it big after him released their debut album. I'm not saying that the success of the 69 Eyes is based on the success of him, but I'm saying that the fact that him break the barrier somehow helped other bands in Finland too to make it big, and they kind of started this thing where English singing bands, heavy metal bands or bands that played rock music, they became suddenly popular again in Finland.
Him's hard-hitting drummer, Mika Christian Karpinen, better known as Gas, was born in 1971. Before joining him, he worked as a carpenter. Gas ended up replacing Johanna Rantala, Him's original drummer.
Well, starting from the first album, like Greatest Love Song 666, has been like the most original Him album. Of course, having their influences by Black Sabbath and stuff like that. Then going like to Razorblade Romance was a big change. Was a very big change, because that one was produced much more commercial in a way, and was like the hit album and had this 80s touch,
Razorblade Romance was released in the month of January 2000, quickly reaching double platinum and pushing the band's sales to over 1 million copies worldwide. The long-awaited album proved to be just the type of follow-up the band needed, confirming a musical progression and growing confidence.